Welcome to CSE598, Applied Vulnerability Research. We are live on Twitch and we are live in person. Probably future events. I don't know, the first one we should do in person. It's a terrible experience streaming to Twitch while in person, while managing the freaking whatever here. Managing the for example. Here. All right, so I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what future ones are like. Maybe we'll use the in-person. You got?
I think the stream title's wrong. I think it's still Phone Talk.
Fuck it. I don't know how to change that shit. We'll change it in post-production. Okay, so this is not a Phone Talk episode about power users. Neither was my streaming my self-recording lectures last night. This is a CSE598. Which is Applied Vulnerability Research. What's the goal of this class? The goal of this class is to do applied vulnerability research. That means we're going to do real shit, we'll get real results, we'll walk away badass hackers. Awesome. All right. What have you done so far as hackers? Hopefully, you have gone through Arizona State University's exemplary cybersecurity material that teaches you how to hack through a huge amount, hundreds, as you see, of hands-on challenges that teach concept after concept after concept and pro you all the way up. And in fact, you should have done this. You'll have a knowledge check as the first module, where you can check if you have this knowledge. I'm not requiring that you got this knowledge through pwn.college, but this class assumes and immediately slaps you with the prerequisite knowledge check, assumes that you know this. We'll talk about it in a second again. But even if you've gone through all of this, so far, your life has kind of been in a sandbox, in a nice learning environment, with nice learning challenges that are nicely designed to help you learn. And what we observe is even the best of the best, as they step out of the dojo, having learned through hundreds of challenges all of these really cool cybersecurity concepts, and they step into a real world fight, cybersecurity. I don't know, maybe someone does. Anyways. Step into a real-world cybersecurity scenario, there's still a gap, right? Even if they step into a still slightly artificial scenario, like capture the flag, and especially if they step into real-world, let's take this giant, complex, real-world system, try to analyze it and understand it. All right, so at the end of all of my classes, 365, 466, whatever I've taught, I always have like an outro that says, okay, well, what can you do with this knowledge? What are the careers available? What can you keep doing to practice? And I say, okay, do bug bounty programs. A lot of places, you can take a look, start looking at software, finding the bugs, the type of bugs that we, are used to dealing with on pwn.college in earlier classes at ASU, and you can start finding them in the real world. And that's a slide, but I don't know if a lot of people can bridge that gap alone. I talk about what to do once you found the bug, but again, there's a gap there in that, sure, you can go through the disclosure process once you found the bug, but it's very difficult to actually sit down and find the bug. So how many of you have gone through some chunk of the pwn.college curriculum? Okay. Well, this class is going to be a lot smaller next time. It's okay. How many of you have then gone and found bugs in real software? Almost nobody. Very few people. This will become relevant in this class because that's what we're doing. I talk about professions that you can do after you've beefed up in cybersecurity, and one of them is a vulnerability researcher. These are amazing super hackers that seek out real bugs and real software, find flaws that can impact people out in the wild, and find them, hopefully get them fixed, and write a blog post and so on. Talk about this a lot. This class is the gap, is designed to bridge the gap into actually doing it. Similarly, another career I talk about is freelance hacking, right? Team up with some other hackers without a corporate overlord, find bugs, and go to pwn and do this incredible stuff. Where you basically show up, you hack the camera, find the down, and walk away.
Hi everyone, I'm Dustin Childs and welcome to Day 3 at Pwn for Vancouver 2019, where our only category entries today are in automotive. The final day of Pwn Vancouver 2019 began with the withdrawal of Team Kunapon from the automotive category. The fluoroacetate duo of Richard Zhu and Amit Kama had quite the crowd as they entered the Tesla Model 3. After a few minutes of setup, they successfully demonstrated their research on the Model 3 internet browser.
Seriously?
They used a jitbug in the renderer to display their message and earn $35,000. Of course, since this is Pwn, they also get the car. It should come as no surprise to anyone that the fluoroacetate duo had been crowned Master of Pwn for 2019. In a tie for third place, Nicholas Baumstadt, as well as Phoenix and Qwerty, each had 4 points towards Master of Pwn.
Boom. You're going to keep in mind that we are just out of the sandbox, wandering around the playground. So I'm going to expect a lot of that core technical knowledge from you, but not the greater, let's look at a complex target and try to figure out what the heck is going on. So after this class, there's another slide from that kind of what are the careers and how do I get into it, and I say you just start applying to things. Some people take this advice, some don't. After this class, the hope is that you will have, oh fuck, I forgot to switch to the slides on Twitch. All right, whatever. This is why it sucks streaming to two crowds at the same time. After this class, the hope is that you will actually have the resume to be able to apply to actual jobs. Say, yeah, I've already done this in CSE598, applied vulnerability research, because it's applied and good. All right, talking about prerequisites briefly. I'm going to mention this again. We expect that you have done a large swath of Pwn College. Not all of it. I see some blue belts in the room. That's not a requirement. Green belt is closer. The knowledge check specifically will test over the next 2 weeks. You have exactly 2 weeks for this. This is about a semester's worth of material, maybe a semester and a half, that I expect you to already know. Starting from Linux, assembly, various trickiness interaction with programs Pythonically, using SQL, all of this stuff, web security, reverse engineering, memory errors, sandboxing, race conditions, kernel security, and Windows. This might be new to some of you. I hope most people will get through this in 2 weeks. This, again, is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 modules. Typically, a module is 2 weeks in an ASU course. This represents about 20 weeks of material that I expect you to have coming in. Let's say I expect you to have 8 weeks of it, and pick up the last 2, finish it out in the next 2 weeks. But this is important. I will launch this tonight. I will send it out on Canvas along with a link to the Pwn College Dojo this class will use for its runtime, and we'll go from there. Yes. Questions on this? Awesome. Yes.
So we're receiving a grade based on the percentage of all these modules we've
Yes.
completed? Okay.
Let's talk about that. What is the class? And we'll get into the grades, not quite yet, but we will. This class, we will split into teams several times over the semester. We will be an actual VR vulnerability research lab. For real, finding real bugs on real targets. We're going to be something like Theory, Keen Team, Cisco Talos, Google Project Zero, and the badasses of Arizona State University, and possibly other blue belts around the world, if they're interested. And we will identify cool targets to analyze, real software that matters. We'll figure out what the analysis plan is going to be. We're going to execute this analysis plan to find the vulnerabilities in the first iteration of this class, and I'll also send out the outro presentations from that iterations, just so you can familiarize yourself with kind of what that process might look like. In the first iteration, we had high hopes. I had high hopes. So once you find the vulnerabilities, you're going to exploit them. You're going to hack real software. It's going to be awesome. I could not force the students to do it. They found the software. They disclosed it. And then they're like, well, who cares about now? Let's go find the next bugs, the next bugs. So, you know, we might, but I took it out provisionally. We're going to find the bugs. We're going to prove that they're a problem, get some proof of concept, and then we'll probably move on to the next target. We're going to learn how to step out of the dojo, sit down at the vulnerability research desk in the vulnerability research minds, and find those vulnerability diamonds. This type of class, it continues to be an experiment. Last time, crazy hijinks ensued. We pissed off an open source maintainer who went on the warpath and emailed the department chair about how ASU students are harassing blah, 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 blah. So that could happen again. I don't know. These things could go wrong. But we're going to shepherd the situation as well as we can, considering that we are kind of doing live fire exercises almost in a university setting. How is all of this going to work? Mentioned the knowledge check. That's going to be 2 weeks. In those 2 weeks, we're going to have lectures that are kind of high level around the process of vulnerability research. In 2 weeks, we're going to split into teams and start our first exercise. A simpler target, like a practice challenge. I will probably assign you a target. It will be a real world target, probably an older version of the software with some known vulnerabilities that you can use to guide your analysis. 4 weeks after that. So in the 4 weeks, you will go through, this will be like, say, project 1. You'll go through the whole process of finding the bugs, of planning the analysis, probably because alongside this, we will have lecture content and guided learning. Probably this one, you're going to be manually looking at things because you won't know how to set up a fuzzer yet, because we won't have had the pwn.college module. Later, you'll start learning more complex, different targets, picking real-world stuff, real-world firmware, real-world other targets. And you know what? This is guaranteed to be exploitable. You might not find bugs in other targets. That's very possible. I won't hold it against you if there's a really good analysis process and it's like, look, we didn't find bugs in that. That happened to some of the teams last time. Last time we had one target for 12 weeks, which was way too long and way too high risk because, you know, you picked a target that is just too difficult to find the bugs in. That sucks, but we'll have a couple of these things. And this is tentative. This class and experiment we'll adapt as we go. And as I mentioned, we'll have a couple of modules exploring different sub-concepts of the analysis, of the vulnerability analysis pipeline that I expect you to start integrating into the targets that your teams are analyzing as things go. What do these kind of 4-week chunks look like? You'll spend a little bit of time, probably a couple of days, selecting the target, because 4 weeks isn't a lot. Making analysis plan. On the second week, you'll present out, this is the target our team is choosing. This is our analysis plan for it. And it's going to be awesome. You're going to run that analysis, whether it's manual, automated, or iterate on it over the next 2 weeks or so. Then in week 3, you say, this is our current results. Hopefully, you have vulnerabilities that you can dig into. And then that last week will be bundling up a proof of concept. Not a full exploit, you don't have to do a full exploit, but it could be very cool if what comes out of this is, here's the exploit, and in fact, here's a pwn.college challenge that our team made, where you set up the latest version of cups, and boom, here it is. And we keep that secret until the responsible disclosure process goes through. It will responsibly disclose all of these vulnerabilities to make sure that we're not putting people at risk, and headlines won't pop up saying ASU students firing live cyber rounds across the open internet. That also means that at least for this part of the course, this is the last open live stream. If you're a blue belt listening to this out there and you want to get involved in this and team up with these students, reach out. I'll also post this in the blue belt channel. Otherwise, this part of the course is going to be closed, not recorded until the final outbriefs. And I'll again send out last iterations, final outbriefs, to see what that's like. Okay, awesome. How are you going to get graded? Well, that knowledge check off the bat, 10% of your grade, next 2 weeks. Again, I expect most people to click into the knowledge check and see that most of it's already green because it's linked to your pwn account. There's 10% participation. What this means is individual ad hoc assignments. I'll assign one at the end of this class, for example. That's another 10% of your grade. I'm going to be honest, the only way I grade things is pwn.college automatically grades things. That's why everything I teach is CTF style. My first grad course, I had no automated grading. I didn't grade, I gave grades on vibes. No, that's not quite true. But this is going to be heavily vibe-based. So, don't expect me to have written feedback with red marks on papers. We're going to have, hey, here's what I looked at. We're going to have a conversation around the room next session about potentially interesting targets, et cetera. And then based on those vibes, so, don't worry about this, but do your best, and I'll do my best. There's going to be a guided learning component, like I mentioned, pwn.college modules on how to fuzz, how to harness, how to use sanitizers, how to do static analysis on firmware, how to rehost firmware so you can interact with it. These sort of things are going to be pwn.college modules that are launched throughout the semester that you will also be expected to do while keeping up with your vulnerability research job class. And then there's the team component. This is the other 40, yes, good, it adds up. This is the other 40% of the class, the process that we described just now. That's a team-based process, and we'll reshuffle teams. I'm not sure how we will do it. I will be the final arbiter of the teams. And if you have like an online blue belt or someone auditing the class, I will run it by the other team members to make sure that, hey, we're okay with someone that isn't depending on this for grades. I have done team projects before. I've assigned team projects before. I've also participated in team projects. I know they can suck. We will do our best to make them not suck, the way you will do that is you will tattle on each other. So at the end of every cycle, there'll be an evaluation form, and I'll say, Farhad, tell me how Sammy did. And we'll have, if you could assign out a total of 100 points to your team members, a total, how many does Sammy get? Sammy gets a lot. He claimed. Okay, good. So, don't stress out too much about it. We've had good luck with this model. Yeah, that'll be great. Okay. Let's talk about more in-depth target selection in the class. The targets that you select, again, the first target, likely I'll assign some or have a list of targets and even potential places to look, potential vulnerabilities. Some of them might be ancient history, some of them might be more modern, but I will hand you the first couple options, and then for round 2 and 3, that's on you. Our targets are going to be used in the real world at some point, and for 2 and 3 now, by actual real people. So it's not going to be, hey, here's a toy class project I found on GitHub, and this undergrad implemented a parsing function that is super vulnerable. No one gives a shit. We're going to be targeting real stuff. Must be active, must be current. Right now, we're going to waive this a little bit for like firmware of embedded devices. You can tell me, hey, this router's really out there, super popular. Here's the showdown result, why it's a valid target. But the vendor says you no longer sell it, so you're on your own. That's still a valid target. It still impacts people. But if you're telling me, except for that very first project, if you tell me I want to do this 27-year-old version of FTP, no. And then it must have a plausible security story. So we're going to be looking at probably network-facing stuff. Or other security. We looked at a video game emulator in the last iteration. That's a plausible security story. It's not network-facing, but people download untrusted ROMs all the time off of sketchy websites. And it turned out that that emulator was full of holes, and these untrusted ROMs could really fuck you up. What it doesn't, is that a question? Scratch your ear? Good. What it doesn't have to be is be super popular. It can be niche. That video game emulator was niche. We had a PDF parser that was niche, but used in the real world. So you can be niche. That's totally fine. If you got like, hey, I'm part of the speedrunning community and we use this very specific something, that's fine, as long as it has a plausible security story. The number of people that are affected doesn't have to be huge, but we want to be able to, and then you want to be able to say, I did this awesome work in this class, and I came out with the experience of making the world a slightly better place by finding, disclosing, and getting these vulnerabilities fixed, and here it is on my CV. Okay. Hopefully we'll do some variety. So I really want to push some embedded firmware analysis. Hopefully every team will do at least one of those in one of the cycles where you choose. I want to do some server-side software, maybe, some user space software. We'll choose 2 of it. Or, be creative. If you really want to, for example, you want to analyze drone control systems or something, that's cool too. It's just, keep in mind, these things get increasingly complicated. How are we going to analyze it? The bulk of the guided learning is going to focus on how to analyze stuff, like the specific, like, this is how you do the punch in martial arts term. We're going to have, again, modules on these specific things. I expect you to already have manual reverse engineering knowledge, as I mentioned. That'll be on the knowledge check. We'll also learn a lot about fuzzing, static analysis, and other techniques of auditing large software code bases. You'll see what we get to in terms of the actual material, but it should be some really cool stuff. Awesome. You, regardless of what I teach you and what's out there, for a real world target, the likely scenario is you're going to have to write custom tooling as well. So please be ready to be comfortable in Python, doing crazy shit, writing your own fuzzers, and so on. I don't think you'll need to operate at the point of writing your own kernel modules to optimize, blah, blah, blah. Or who knows, depending on the target. Right? Vulnerabilities you're interested in, primarily, I personally interested in code execution bugs. But we'll disclose, like, if you find some lame-ish bugs that don't, like, you get your target, you start analyzing, and you're like, all you found is null pointer to references. From a badass hacker point of view, that's a bummer, but those are still bugs. We'll still disclose them, and if, depending on the project, the Linux kernel, for example, is very happy to hand out CVEs nowadays for null pointer dereferences. We'll do disclosures. This is a difference since the last time I ran this course. We'll do disclosures as soon as possible. Last time we hoarded all of the bugs. We got more and more and more, and then we had, in the end of the class, a disclosure step that, first of all, we had too many bugs to do a good job. We overwhelmed maintainers, causing chaos, and some of the bugs we found were really cool bugs that other people found in between us finding them and us reporting them, which is a bummer because, though, that's not as impactful. So we're going to, as soon as we find bugs, we're going to report. And, with these 4-week cycles, I think this will work pretty well. Awesome. All right. Finally, it's not just me who is going to be teaching you guys. I will invite friends, colleagues, contacts in the industry, and they will give guest talks. They'll say, hey, this is what vulnerability research is like for a very large tech company, looking at our internal software. This is what vulnerability research is like as a Ronin, wandering the paths of cybersecurity. And this is what vulnerability research is like, as, I don't know, it's going to be fun. It's going to be interesting to hear. These talks also likely won't be recorded, so however we facilitate them, whether it's Discord channels or some of them maybe will be on Twitch, but we'll see. This will hopefully give you a good exposure into the process. And last year, some percentage of these folks stayed around and helped mentor the teams, which was awesome. So we'll see if that happens again. Cool. All right. That brings us to the first participation homework. Let's start down the road of vulnerability research. From the very specific skill side, we have the knowledge check coming out tonight. Don't snooze on that. Check it out. Like I said, the knowledge check represents, over a semester's worth of work that, again, I expect you already to know. But keep in mind, this is the level of the class. We'll have late credit on the knowledge check if you need it after the 2 weeks, but that knowledge check is where we expect the table stakes to be. Aside from that, the participation thing, we're going to learn about other research, vulnerability research labs, and the vulnerability research process. Find a vulnerability research lab. This is your task over the next week for the next session. And a vulnerability research lab can be a one person, like this dude. This is what we're going to look at right now. Find a write-up from a cool result. Read it, and then we'll talk. Just what was the process? What are the vibes you got? What did you learn? We'll talk about that in the next session. All right, awesome. And we'll also have someone come in and talk about their process and so on. Okay, so on that note, what are the vibes, et cetera, let's learn about a recent awesome vulnerability research result on the CUPS subsystem in Linux and Mac OS. Any questions before we move on to that? About the class, etc.
Are we going to be meeting here every Thursday in person?
I don't know. We'll kind of vibe it. There's pros and cons, right? Like we can sit around. Probably next week we'll still be in person, unless we won't, because I might be out of town. So when I'm out of town, it'll be on Discord. We'll have the standard pwn.college setup of a a private space on Discord, and we can talk there, or we can talk here. It depends on how many Bluebells join us, and they might not be able to travel to ASU every week. Cool. So we'll figure it out. This is an experiment. We're just gonna stick with that concept. All right. God damn it. Let's learn about evil socket and CUPS. And this is an example of exactly what we want to achieve in this class. And it's a really cool example because it doesn't really rely on crazy complex analysis techniques, cutting edge academic approaches to program analysis. It's just a dude looking at code. And the dude is evil socket. And last year, toward the end of the year, this kind of a rumbling started to emerge that there is an absolutely colossal series of vulnerabilities about to drop, impacting Linux and Mac OS. And they're printing subsystems. The printing subsystem here is CUPS. And honestly, I don't remember what CUPS stands for, but the PS is printing system, Common Unix Printing System. I think that's what it stands for. And CUPS has been the printing system in Linux and Mac OS for literally decades. And it is this quiet piece of technology that glues together a critical thing, printing. Who here has printed a piece of paper? All right, most people. Yeah, I hate that shit. Every time I have to print something, I have anxiety. Unless I'm, nowadays, literally nowadays, especially after this, because in the wake of this, I broke all my printing setups trying to. Anyways, I just email stuff to myself, open it on my phone, and air print it. And I hate myself for that because it feels really, really dumb, but that's the reality. All right, so Evil Socket is a security researcher, and he thought, critical piece of technology that's present in everything, that's Linux, BSD, etc., and macOS, really unsung, unsexy component. Like, this isn't a web browser, or Tesla or whatever. This is like a piece of essentially business glue software that in some sense no one had really been thinking about, and extremely network facing in that you don't plug printers directly into your computer anymore. You print, you connect them to your Wi-Fi, and you print, and you air print, and you whatever. And no one's looked at this more functionally. No one's looked at this for decades. And this is a good inspiration, basically. From a generic security point of view, a whole Linux system as it stands nowadays is just an endless and hopeless mess of security holes waiting to be exploited. And this applied to CUPS as well, it turns out. So, what happened? Evil Socket took a look at CUPS. TLDR, he ended up with a nice hodgepodge of vulnerabilities that in tandem allowed a complete takeover of a remote Linux system. And oftentimes, that Linux system reached out to you to get exploited. For example, if you're chilling on a public Wi-Fi and a Linux system connects. All right. The impact is big. It is network. The impact is big. But we're more interested in the process. There's a whole big drama of disclosure of this vulnerability we'll get to later. Impact is big, everything is vulnerable. So, what happened? Well, Evil Socket kind of stumbled into this. Said, hey, I was configuring a new Ubuntu laptop, and I was looking at what ports are open on the network, and I noticed, what the fuck is this? Port 631 is just open on a fresh install. What the hell is 631? Open to the internet. And he realized that 631 is part of CUPS on a fresh Ubuntu install, and it's listening on the network. And right away said, did some quick, brushing up on what the fuck is CUPS, and realized that it's an ancient, unsexy piece of software that people are just not looking at for vulnerabilities. So, literally, this was Evil Socket's first in-depth experience into CUPS. And reading this blog post was my first in-depth experience into CUPS. Until then, it's like, why doesn't this shit work? Why doesn't my printer ever work in Linux? And now it's like, this is how printers pop up in Linux. So a well-configured CUPS system is constantly scanning its local network looking for printers. And it turns out that from literally looking at source code to try to figure out what is this port doing, no fancy analysis techniques, literally just learning how the system works. Looking at these files for a couple of weeks, Evil Socket realized that there are tons of flaws in here, that TLDR have memory corruption vulnerabilities. For that, he did fuzz the thing. And even more, parse out text from the packet and grab the URL to print to the printer, and where is the thing? Build a file on the file system, a configuration file for the printer, by grabbing completely unsanitized inputs directly from the network. So, who here remembers path injection, cross-site scripting, SQL injection? This should raise alarm bells. And it did. If you scroll down, this is the type of file that gets created. And basically, just by putting a new line in this packet that CUPS asks for, just by putting a new line in it, you can basically say, hey, yeah, whatever, new line, and then start a brand new attribute. And then he started looking around. What does this allow me to do? I can now craft these input files however I want, these configuration files. And he realized that there is a part of CUPS that is designed to trust your printer to tell it what commands to run on your local system to print to it. And so, of course, you can inject, this is what it looks like. Your printer will say, hey, here's the command line, blah, 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 blah. And there's been enough vulnerabilities that people are pretty careful about what pneumatic command lines CUPS will use, but because you can inject this thing willy-nilly into this config file that's created, basically you can inject into a different component something that has a new line and then overrides that attribute with the command you want. So, to summarize, Evil Socket saw a weird open port on his laptop, noticed a interesting looking service to look at, and you don't have to look for open ports on your laptop to find these things, but this is one potential source. Looked at it manually for a while. This part was all manual, the part where there's this command injection, and found a bug that relies on no complex exploitation, no crazy memory tweaking and control flow hijack, et cetera, literally figured out how to use 2 or 3 different components of the system to inject a command that a Linux or a Mac OS machine will happily run. And boom. Then, so that's, let's say, those first 3 steps. You find the target, you figure out how to analyze it, and you find the bug, and you write the proof concept. 4 steps. Now we have to responsibly disclose. This is where things went to hell for Evil Socket as well. So, you know, there's a lot of these memes. You scrolled past at the beginning. These guys, nope, that's about the memory corruption vuln. This guy, this is because this disclosure process went horribly wrong. Evil Socket disclosed the, somewhere there's an in-depth, yeah. So, Evil Socket disclosed stuff, said, hey, this is a big problem. But of course, no one likes to be responsible for a massive security issue on there. So, a default knee-jerk reaction from maintainers often is, it's not a problem. Who would ever do this stuff? Like, it's not, you know, and so then all hell broke loose, tempers flared, posts got leaked, this whole thing blew up, and this could happen to us, and it kind of did in the last iteration. So we're going to be as careful as possible in disclosing vulnerabilities. This might also mean leaving impact on the table. Here's the vulnerability. You know, we're not going to make a big fuss that, you know, you write articles in the New York Times declaring that cops is we're the cops maintainers and we fucked up. But we're going to do our job, find the bugs, report them. Yeah, so this is a great, I highly recommend also reading this. You can't use it for your, you know, thing. But finding the bugs took 2 days, and then actually getting the bugs disclosed and fixed, etc., took 3 weeks. And a big internet hoo-ha. We're going to try to avoid that, but it sometimes is the hardest part of the process. All right. Any questions on Evil Socket? On the vulnerability research process? On knowledge check? On the teaming? Yes?
Are the teams going to be randomly selected, or do we get to pick each other and then from then on switch up later on?
Let me think about it. I am hesitant to start immediately with a cluster of super elite blue belts and then like everyone else, and then like a cluster of like the people that didn't know anyone, so they ended up together. So probably we will have some input, and we have 2 weeks to decide. Cool. Other thoughts? All right. This class is over in 15 normally, right? All right. Yeah, so first day, about to end early unless someone has other questions. Yes?
Are we going to have a Canvas page for this class?
No, we will, yes, because I will post one announcement, and that is click here to go to pwn.college. There are no Canvas deadlines, no Canvas discussions. I don't even get notifications from Canvas, so if you want to talk, you talk on Discord or email, and Canvas will be a way to link you to and I will post a Canvas announcement today when the pwn.college dojo is up, the knowledge check is up, and we're ready to go. All right, the knowledge check, I highly recommend you take it very seriously. If you open it up and it's like, I have no idea what the fuck this is, consider taking this class next time. And in the meantime, taking that knowledge. That's 10% of your grade, fine. The problem is you're going to have a hard time ramping up for the rest of the material as well, and that is not good. I think for grad courses, the bar is a lot higher. As a grad student, to count it, you need, C's can't count, right, or something. So the bar is high. The knowledge check's already halfway down to where you can't count it for a grad course. So please take that for what it is. If you've taken this stuff and you're like, okay, I'm missing a couple of challenges here and there, that's fine. Like I said, there's going to be late credit. It's going to be 50%. Like if you do the knowledge check on the last day, you'll get 5% of it. But if you have to do that, you're already starting on the back foot. I don't recommend pushing through. So it's fine to take it later. We teach this course. We've taught it. This is the third time in 5 years, so it doesn't happen every year, but you know it will happen again. And otherwise, I will see you all next week. Don't forget your homework. Thank you.